think it's possible to correct our intuitions, even if we can't overcome the limits on attention or perception or memory that I talked about. So partly our intuitions are built up from our experiences, but our experiences are incomplete. So if we can give more information, give more feedback about the ways in which our intuitions are wrong, then we can correct them. So for example, if you think you'll always notice something unexpected, and you can give people direct evidence that they don't, and then you can take actions to kind of prevent the consequences of that. We're dealing with structural limits on how the mind works, right? So in the same way that we'll never be able to see ultraviolet light directly, we're not going to be able to remember everything, pay attention to everything simultaneously. It's kind of a fantasy of science fiction that you could somehow be able to pay attention to all things at once and take them in, but I think there's structural limits to how much we can really understand from one moment to the next and over time that we're not going to be able to overcome. Now, does that mean we won't be able to use technology to supplement what we could do? Of course we will, right? We'll be able to have systems that will notice unexpected things for us. Automated cars will eventually do that, right? We can use Google to supplement our memory, right? But that doesn't mean that we suddenly are able to store more or remember more or pay attention to more. It means that we have access to more information when we need it. Unless you could structurally change how humans work, I don't think that's likely to fundamentally change how we see. And training isn't going to suddenly allow us to see more or pay attention to everything. There are just limits to how much you can pay attention to and how much you can do. You might be able to improve things at the margins a tiny amount, but being able to fundamentally change how our minds work, evolution takes a long time. If you think about what we would have to do to find information about where a conference is being held years ago, you'd have to look in your mail to find it, and you have to find the papers that you happen to have. Now you can take 2 seconds on your phone and look it up online, right? So there's much, much greater accessibility to information that we never had access to before. So that leads to the potential to really dramatically change how much we take in. And AI is just a part of that, right? AI gives us the capability of processing more information in ways that we couldn't have done before. But there's only so much we can do to use that information in our own heads. I think magic can teach us a lot of things. And as somebody who's not a magician and doesn't really know magic in the way that some of the people in this audience do, for me, it's an source of inspiration, right? In the same way that the intuitions of filmmakers who've had decades of experience of trying and seeing what works, magic gives great insights for scientists about what works and works reliably. And that's something that in psychology is hard to do, right? To get effects that are robust, that are huge, that work for almost everybody, that gives you a medium that you can actually study the basic mechanisms of how cognition and perception work.